Hello, welcome to David Eames On Your Mind, a conversation between friends about mental health issues. Hello, and welcome to the David Eames On Your Mind podcast. As usual, I'm joined by the beautiful Owen Oxley and the ravishing Mikey Markham. Today we're going to be talking about resilience. It's an important thing, but it's sometimes misconstrued these days at a pull yourself together school of therapy, but it's a bit more complicated than that. Owen, are you resilient?
I don't think I've had a choice but to be resilient.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, I'd probably be in prison. It's a difficult one because a lot of the times you can only ever credit yourself for being resilient when your head is clear to look back and realise what you've managed to get through, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. A lot of times life throws shit at you that you just would never expect. And if you knew that there was going to be a tragedy or a car accident or something, you would never sleep. But then seemingly when it's thrust upon yourself and you manage to get through it, it's, I suppose, learning from each experience of that to try and reduce any sort of damage during any other trauma in your life. Mm-hmm. And I think even from growing up, being a child of divorce, which I know is an insane thing to think when you deal with that when you're 4, it can explain other things that you deal with when you get older. And I don't know, I suppose I like to think I'm resilient, but I also develop Tourette's very, very quickly and very easily. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I know there's a lot of circumstances that I probably could have dealt with better. And there's other times when I think, holy shit, have I not killed someone? Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, I like to think deep down I can cope with pretty much anything.
Uh-huh. What about you, Mikey? Are you resilient?
Yes and no. I relate and resonate with everything you were saying there. I don't know if I think it's resilience, but I just go into pilot mode and get everything done and get very stressed by it. So I don't know if that doesn't constitute as resilience for me. I'd like to be more stoic in the way that I handle myself and get through situations, because I go into panic stations when the business and everything's just accumulating. I get it done eventually, but I'm literally bruised, battered, and at the end of my tether by it, if that makes sense. So I would very much like to work on my resilience and become more resilient to life.
Okay. I think that one way of looking at the maturing process is seeing it as developing resilience.
Yeah.
So a toddler not being allowed to have an ice cream is the end of the world.
Yeah.
It's an unsurvivable tragedy.
Yeah.
Hopefully, by the time you're 21, you're better able to deal with that. But then the end of a relationship might seem unsurvivable. Basically, every bad thing that happens to us in life maybe teaches us a lesson.
Yeah.
That we survive it.
Yeah.
And you can apply that going forward when you've been kicked quite a few times, maybe start to develop the belief that you'll get through it. Not necessarily it's going to be fun, but that you'll get through it.
Yes. And I had an experience this morning with my daughter, actually, which I can probably relate to this, because I think resilience is something that you develop and learn and nurture yourself. I don't think you don't have to be as hard on yourself if you're trying to be resilient and learn resilience in the eye of the storm. Does that make sense? So sometimes when someone wants to be pissed off or has a reason to be pissed off and just wants to vent or just try and get a little bit out, it doesn't necessarily need that needs to be muted so that they can learn the lesson there and then. Does that make sense? So, I mean, this morning, getting the kids out of the house is always a hassle. And essentially, it was a friend's birthday. My wife's bought a present for her. It's all on the side, ready for her to go. We left the house slightly later and a little bit out of order. So my other daughter got herself in the car so she could have the front seat, which rattled my older daughter. I then said, "Are you ready?" And I was talking to her about how good the bank holiday is going to be. That made her forget the present. So when we were in the car, she said, "I forgot the present," and had a meltdown. We hadn't left the drive. So I took the key out. I said, "No worries, give her the key." She got out of the car, went and got the present, came back in the car. But instead of getting in the car going, "Nice one, Dad, perfect, I've got it, everything's good," it was my fault. And then she started building this whole narrative and reason as to why it was my fault. And then because her hackles were up, if you like, we were then talking about something else. And she was saying, oh, I can't believe I got such and such lesson today. And I said, listen, it's all good because you've got a few hours, then it's going to be bank holiday and it's your birthday next week. And she went, yeah, well, on my birthday, I'm expected to do revision. And because she's got her mocks coming up. And I was like, fuck me. Like, are you just replacing negativity with negativity? It doesn't need to be such a shit show. Like, we can focus on a positive.
So she's kind of demonstrating anti-resilience.
Exactly. And because I was in a
which is known as catastrophizing.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And because she was in that headspace and I wasn't, I love Fridays. I live for Fridays. The sun was out. I was dropping the kids off. I didn't have anywhere to be straight away, so I knew I was going to get home and see the dogs and have a cup of tea. Everything was good. But she rattled my cage so hard. I was like, fuck me. It doesn't have to be bad. Just because I've gone, well, don't worry about the revision. I'll do it. Yeah, well, I hate the word Friday. It's like, fuck it. There's just no escape. But essentially what I did was, instead of engaging in that, I was like, cool, yeah, no worries, man. All good. And because I didn't, you could see that she was then really working through it. And she completely changed the subject because she wanted to have a bit of conversation that wasn't linked to this fireball of shit. So, like I say, instead of me trying to sit her down and going, you know what you were doing there? You were catastrophizing. That's not going to help anyone. What you need to do in this circumstance, because essentially, if we have that experience again, then I'd like to think that she can relate the two and sort of go, hold on a minute, this never ended well. Does that make sense?
Well, she'd had an outburst of anxiety.
Yes.
The forgetting of the present means humiliation, because that's not going to be there. That's utter disaster.
Yeah.
Regardless of the fact that it's instantly solvable, that outburst then needs to kind of be resolved.
It's like a pressure, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like it's loaded up, and unless you release that pressure... I mean, I've had it, where you're ready to be really fucked off, and then someone goes, actually... I have found your order. It was here, and you've still got this bubbling rage of fucking
leftover
it's like a
residue,
like a bottle of lemonade.
Yeah, what am I going to do with this bag of shit?
Well, hold on a minute.
Who am I going to throw it at?
Yeah, I wanted to shout at you, and it's like, well, actually, we've got you a better deal. And it's like, well, I'm really happy, thank you. It's just, what are you going to do? It's just, and I think acknowledging that, and we've spoke about this bit in the past, is the breathing. It's just taking a second and. It's easy to say because we all get road rage.
Yeah, but I think it's a belief system in the end.
Yeah.
So it's that, and it's principally that belief you get through it, and also accepting where you are. So very often our instant reaction to something going wrong is, this is not fair. This shouldn't have happened. Well, tough shit, it has.
Yeah.
There's no changing what has happened. The only thing that exists now is, what are you going to do about it? So if you can focus forward rather than back, then that's a resilient approach.
Yeah.
So, for instance, when I used to work for someone else in an electronics business, very, very occasionally, barely rememberable, I might have made a mistake. And the thing is, as soon as I discovered it, I'd go straight to the managing director and say to him, listen, I've screwed up here, this was what happened, but this is my plan to deal with it. And then rather than giving me a bollocking, we'd be focused on how we were going to get out of it.
Yeah. But I'm sure there would have always been a quieter time, once that project was finished and gone, that you'd gone, mate, you had me scared that time. Or you can talk about it after the fact.
Yeah.
Because it is...
But that fear reaction, or that anger, and anger is just fear of a different colour. It's just that you're in fight mode rather than flight mode. It's not going to help you get it done unless you can recognise it for what it is and then weaponise it in your direction. What do you think, Mikey?
I was listening in and I had a question emerge that I'm not off topic here, but could you give a bit of advice, and this is for me, but in terms of a couple mentality, like we have a business together, and I said that exact word, like, okay, but this is where we're at now, this is the reality of the situation, what we're going to do, let's fight it, let's do it. That's my sort of attitude and resilience to it. But what if your partner isn't in that mind frame and readiness for that? Could you just give me a bit of advice right now? Please.
This feels a bit current.
Yeah, off the cuff.
Well, again, it's that whole thing about, hey, you shouldn't be feeling this way.
Yeah.
Is not going to get you anywhere, is it? Again, that's not dealing with the situation you're in. That's wanting things to be different.
Definitely.
So resilience in a relationship. We can all fail in this, and I do on a regular basis. but it's about acknowledging what the other person's emotional state is,
Yeah.
and kind of allowing that to happen, and sometimes allowing them to work through it in an understanding way, and if they're in throwing bag of shit mode, then maybe you just got to catch it.
Yeah, I hear you.
And then wait for that to work through.
Because you love them.
Yeah,
You just
yeah.
want to help them
because
through it,
as we've discussed in earlier podcasts, I believe that loving someone is about forgiving and accepting them.
Yeah.
And sometimes our only choice is to not make things worse. That we all respond differently to things. The whole thing, there is no right way to respond to something emotionally.
No.
It's just how, because you don't get to choose your emotion.
No.
But if someone feels that they're not being listened to when they're in a fearful state because of something that's happened, we're only going to increase their anxiety by not listening.
I suppose this is a question. Have you got a moment in your life where you reacted how you wouldn't have wanted to react in a situation, and then realised as you'd evolved, I grew resilience to that situation?
Well, yes, and also I still have react to situations in an unhelpful way, let's put it that way, and after the fact. I mean, I always say that I always know exactly what's the right thing to say to my wife, always. But unfortunately, it's after I've said something else very often.
Yeah. And what I have to remind myself of is we are all human and all different. And sometimes when you get fixed on wanting to do something, like your goal at the minute is making this work, you've got a plan and it's in your head, and you've got a lot of time in your own head, either lying in bed, driving the car, doing whatever you're doing, and you can be fully fixed on doing a job, and you've got your internal thoughts, you know what's going through, unfortunately, everyone else is doing exactly the same thing, and it's not always in line. Like last week, we got up and Stacey had been clearly thinking about cutting conifers down for however long. And that was what we were doing. This is what we're doing. This is the plan. This is it. And I hate conifers, but I also knew that I needed to do some slabbing.
It's a bit tree-ish, that is.
It is completely tree-ish. Fuck them. I hate conifers.
I've never seen this side to you.
But they're itchy. They're horrible. They don't burn well. You've got to leave them for ages to dry out. Anyway, then they cause.
Why do you stand on Christmas trees?
Yeah.
Anyway,
Right.
I'm distracting you.
But because I didn't immediately shut down what she'd said, because she was getting into conifer mode and I was in slabbing mode, because I could insert slabbing as a reasonable option because that was going to take care of another eyesore that she had, it kind of placated her enough, because I said, look, if we cut these trees down now, it's Moo's birthday next week, there's going to be a load of shit everywhere, it's also going to expose the side of the garden where they can see over, and it's just a bit, we will do them, but if we do them this week, it's going to cause this problem. Whereas alternatively, what we can do is I can slab this area of the patio, and I can move 3 or 4 things that have been in your way all winter that you hate seeing. And as much as she wasn't into it, she was resilient to the point where she was like, do you know what? And she kept moving forward. And there was no argument. Like, we've fallen out about stupid shit like this before, as everyone does.
Yeah.
But it was more by introducing like a compromise.
Well,
if you like.
it's about not turning it into a competition. So often when someone's in an emotional state, maybe a bit angry, which is a result of anxiety, they're kind of handing you a script to read where you're going to engage in a battle.
Yeah.
And if you don't read that script and you read your own script, you probably have a better outcome.
Change the dance.
Yeah. So if someone keeps their arousal level keeps escalating, if you stay at the same point, it's quite hard for them to go up, and eventually they'll come back down again.
Yeah.
So it's not about contradiction. It's not about condescending, because that might as well put your tackle on the table and hit it with a hammer.
Or passive aggressive.
It's just about playing it with a dead bat, to use a cricketing analogy, and just wait for the storm to pass a little bit, and I say not catastrophizing it, and maybe trying to turn it around with, okay, yeah, this is bad, but hey, I think maybe if we try this, not you're wrong in your thinking here.
Yeah.
Do you think there's an element of when people go into the catastrophizing state that as made them get through that situation in a way where they've
It's
I'm
some
attacking it.
people's process.
Yeah.
You know, that they want to howl at the moon.
Yeah.
Some people will internalise and just go into silent planning mode. And maybe they're not going to vocalise it at all. Or maybe someone vocalising their frustration might be some help in some ways, because it allows you to get over it. But it's that being able to. We often focus on how things are for us, and if we focus on how they are for the other person, we're more likely to have a resilient response. So, okay, this person's shouting and screaming at the moment. You can go, you shouldn't do that to me. I deserve to be treated better. I'm going to shout and scream at you back. Or you can go, okay, what's really happening for them here? Why is this having such a big effect?
Maybe another element that I can sort of speak of is to look at what you have got at the minute and not all the things that you haven't. Because our situation is very much, we struggled with this farm and everything. And that was December. With that time, we ended up getting a new premise, a new space. And now that's happened organically and been building up. We've got a bus there now, and I've put about 20 grand in it. And now this place is working. They're seeing that, but they've gone, oh, we need our money now. We need the rent and everything for it. Even though they were like, well, you've put 20 grand on an area that we've never used for about 50 years. So I was thinking they'd be a bit lenient with it. And then the planning permission come at the same time. So a big, heavy number came across as well. And I was just not ready for all that. And I've been through taserings, as we know. I've been through breakups and many different things. And I just got a bit shaken again recently. I had a moment of, oh, I don't know what to do here. But sitting here now with you guys and just being able to calm for a minute and think about, we're on a bus now. I wouldn't have had that 3 months, 4 months ago. It's really nice weather. Things are going well.
Yeah.
It's not the worst situation to be dealt with. It's just how we're going to make this next space self-sustainable now. Do you know what I mean? So this has been a calming help for me, just being able to go, oh, what have I got now? Rather than, oh shit, we're in shit creek.
Yeah, there's an old guy. There's an old gag about a guy is in bed with his wife all night and he's tossing and turning and can't sleep, and she goes, Jim, what the hell's the matter with you? He says, oh, this is many years ago. It's a lot of money. He says, I owe Arthur 10 quid and I can't afford to pay him. It's due tomorrow. She says, hang on a minute. She opens the window and shouts across the street, Arthur, can you hear me? Yeah, what is it? He says, that £10 that Jim owes you, yeah? Well, he can't pay you. And she gets back in bed, says, now, let him have a sleepless night.
Yeah.
In the end, if you can't meet all the bills,
Yeah.
which you might be the case, okay, which ones do you have to meet?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, what do you prioritise? What's your strategy of getting through it?
Yeah.
If you focus always on what's happened and the disaster that you're in, it's probably going to paralyse you from what actions you need to take.
That's brilliant advice.
Yeah. And if you're recriminating about, I've made some bad choices here, I'm not saying you have.
I am,
but,
and I have.
But okay, but you've made them.
Yeah.
So can I learn from that in the future, and how can I deal with it going forward? This is the whole resilient approach.
Yes.
Rather than running around screaming and lamenting what's happened, how are you going to deal with it?
Yeah, I mean...
And what's the worst that can happen, in an essence?
Yeah.
Because when I built down there, I'm like, it's not that bad, actually. I've got people that love me and would house you, and you get to that end of the spectrum, you go, okay, let's build from there. Like,
yeah, at the very bottom line of it is any day above the grass is a good one.
Yeah,
and what you have to remember sometimes as well is, as much as you feel that's now your priority and goal and the only thing you can think about, it's not everyone else's. So it's not they're not shaking a stick. Like, you can talk to people, or you can break it down, or like my wife writes everything down. That calms her down. She writes it down, writes fucking endless lists. But it helps. I take the dogs for a walk. It helps. But what I found is, by trying to force something, you actually you spiral. Everything becomes muddy. Like, as a creative and a graphic designer, I've sat before and I couldn't do shit for a week or so. And then there's deadlines and all the normal grown-up stuff. I hate deadlines and I hate all that sort of shit, because I think if it's going to come, it's going to come, and it'd be the best and all the rest of it. I've never missed a deadline, but I don't like having it hanging over me. And I sat up night after night after night, trying to get something out, and literally nothing would come. It was the worst. And then I actually spoke to a colleague, and we just had a sit down. We had a chat, played a bit of PlayStation, and then I went home. And that night, it's like a light bulb went off, and I did like 3 weeks worth of work in 2 hours.
Yeah. When I used to write software, for City, that if I was stuck, I would keep hammering away at it, leave it, come back the next day, and invariably sort it. If I'm working with a client now and it feels like they're in an utterly disastrous state, and I have some anxiety thinking I have no idea what to do here, so I don't do anything. And then eventually something occurs and we move forward.
Yeah.
It's like, playing football when a team's behind and they start trying to force the game, they make it worse.
Yeah.
You've got to play your natural game.
Yeah.
That's good, yeah. I just wanted to give you that, hit me nicely then. Yeah, go back to the game plan.
Yeah.
Don't try and force yourself to be something you're not.
Yeah, something's happened that you didn't expect.
Yeah.
But okay, does that mean everything you've been doing is wrong? Or is it just an unexpected event, and how are you going to deal with it?
Yeah, and sometimes people aren't the best. People can be shithouses, and they can convince you that you are wrong and everything you've done's wrong. And unfortunately, it's the same thing that you said before. You have to put yourself in their shoes and understand why they're thinking what they're thinking and why they've got to that position. I mean, I've had it recently with a friend, and my best mate turned to me and said, "Don't ever let them take your shine, mate." And I was like, "Oh shit, yeah." And he says, "Look," he says, "you are brilliant. You're the best." You're to him. You're the best at what you do. Like there's nothing wrong with what you're doing. It's just, unfortunately, it's a justification of actions for someone else. And I was like, okay, fair enough. And I think sometimes, like you say, you sit down and you look around. Your kids are all right, family's all right, the house is not burnt down. Just like have a Coke and a smile. Do you know what I mean? It's all good. Just
and being able to bring that best version of yourself to the table, rather than being the catastrophized version of yourself, is probably going to make a much better situation. Because if you're in your head and you're thinking, oh, it's going to be this bad and I've got to make that really uncomfortable phone call and I've got to have this chat with this person, in your head you've had that conversation and it's gone totally wrong, and you're ready to go at them. Probably what happens is they're very understanding, they've been through a similar situation, and you can be very calm-minded in yourself about it.
Yeah, someone's house is destroyed in an earthquake, someone's got 6 kids, and they're there standing amidst the rubble, and somebody comes up from the TV channel and interviews them. Said, "Well, you've lost everything," and he counts the family. He said, "No, I've got everything we need."
Yeah.
It's that perspective.
Wow.
Or you speak to someone else that's disappointed because they didn't get a pair of trainers they wanted, and you go, "Hold on, mate.
I had that the other day.
Let's look at the big picture,
mate."
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and again, that's the resilience thing of getting older, because the longer you live, the more disasters you live through.
Yeah.
And they teach you, if nothing else, that you get through it.
I've got a really funny example of that the other day. We've had our baby now, Phoebe. Amazing. So, but obviously it all happened so quickly. So new LeBrons I had on, they're really snazzy, but I just kicked them off in the living room. Ran out, got Chrissy. We went and had a baby together. Got home and the dog had chewed them all up. And it was so funny that the polar of being so happy and my new family and just some material get back. I see them all chewed up, and it really it did me in for a minute. I had to go look at Phoebe and go, well, you were worth it. But
and who was to blame?
Yeah, I get it. I don't need
can't have
that.
a bad word said against that dog.
He's
He's the most beautiful
dog.
boy. So,
Yeah.
like, you fuck your trainers.
And labs chew shit up.
Yeah.
They really do, don't they?
Yes.
He loves it.
Mate, he's the
Such
boy.
a good dog.
I won't have a bad word said against him. He's the most resilient dog ever.
Yeah.
He chews everything, doesn't give a fuck, keeps smiling, big
does.
licks.
Now, there's another aspect of resilience which I think is maybe important to address is how do you deal with feeling under attack? There's a lot of talk these days about people being bullied, and probably there's rightly a focus on trying to stop that happening in the workplace and at school. I think almost everyone experiences some bullying at school. I know for you, Mikey, it was quite severe.
It was awful.
Yeah.
Same.
But again, was it all bad in terms of the results
I
that
like
it
that
produced?
you brought that as part of the conversation, because we work with a lot of young people here now, and that was, in my eyes, part of the development process, and it's made me who I am today.
Yeah.
And there is resilience in coded in me too. The sort of conversations I have here now, they is a bit of a philosophy or a belief. They should be protected at every corner, and they couldn't be treated like this. And I see tears break out for the most ridiculous of reasons. Can I say at times where you go, "Are you really? They called you Silly Billy?" No way. And I don't want to ever promote bullying in any slight way, but I think there needs to be an understanding. Well, what are you going to do about it? What's the learning for you right now? Yeah, it's made you feel a certain way, but how can we work with that feeling?
Yeah, if a child never encounters discomfort growing up, how are they going to deal with a world which is often quite unpleasant?
Yeah.
Well, you look at child actors. Child actors are a perfect example. You've got these kids that are being put into a position where no one says no, and then they're brought up by adults and like the best of everything, and a different routine and everything. Majority of them had really big drug problems and like struggled through life. I mean, I stood and I spoke to one of the teachers at my youngest daughter's school, and she's brilliant. She knows exactly who I am. She knows she's going to get swearing. She knows she's dead sound, and we've always got on really well. So I've always been able to shoot her straight. And basically, they had a PE teacher that has been there forever. He was a lovely guy, really nice, and just all of a sudden left and went to a different school. And my youngest was devastated because he understood all of them because he's known them for such a long time. And this new guy came along, and she came home from school and she was fuming. And I said, "What's wrong?" She said, "Well, such and such now," he says, "you're not allowed to show any emotion. If you do get picked for the team, you're not allowed to show you're happy. If you don't get picked for the team, you're not allowed to be sad because you might get it next time. If you do score a goal, you're not allowed to celebrate. If you don't score a goal..." And I was like, "What the fuck?" And I basically went over to her and I said, "Bro, listen," to the teacher. I said, "Mate, like, I get that we've got like participation trophies and all this bollocks, but really, like, you're not allowed to say I've scored." Like, what?
Repress.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
And I just...
Is this legit?
That's legit.
Because I can't. There's some things I hear nowadays where I'm like, that can't actually be true.
It breaks my brain because it's like whenever we've played games and stuff, whenever we've done anything competitive with the kids, I have never let them win. And I will celebrate like a motherfucker. And when they win, I will big them up. But it's not a case of we can't play Monopoly with such and such because they'll flip the ball. We can't. Like, yeah, they lose their shit and they get frustrated, but that's because it means something.
It's the
that's
zest
because
of life,
there's
isn't it?
passion.
Competition.
But you know, if like every game of Uno we sat there and it's like, "Well done, you win again." That's what the fuck's boring.
Why has it got to that state? Any thesis, any idea of why it got to that position?
I think that people struggle with disciplining children. You know, having taken away the sanction of thrashing them within an inch of their lives, somehow people think that's a bad idea. I don't know, the world's gone mad.
Do you think social media's got a big part to play because everyone now feels that they have a voice? So like things like Flat Earth before was a pub conversation where someone would be pissed up and go, "Hey, up, Mikey, you know, the Earth's flat," and because you're pissed up, you're like, "Oh my god, really?" When let's be honest, it's not flat.
No.
And so
now they're able to form a community of morons.
And this is the thing. Is that the case? Because everyone's got a voice, and then all of a sudden, celebrities are approachable, or whoever. Like, everyone can have an opinion, or a blog, or a podcast, or whatever it is.
I get you.
So that unfortunately, if someone does want to associate as this or associate as that, then instead of taking it forward as this is just what I am and I'm quite happy doing it myself, I'd rather be offended.
Echo chambers.
There is maybe a confusion that's come about that rather than everyone being entitled to an opinion, which is certainly true, we have this view that all opinions are equally valid, which is certainly not true. Because there are some things which contain objective truth and some which go against
Somebody said the other day, just because you said it, it doesn't mean it's right. I was like, oh, that's a really good thing to remember, in the back of your mind.
But I think, that parents can struggle to discipline children. You know, if they're maybe didn't have the best environment themselves growing up, and that may not be too articulate, struggle to deal with very active children sometimes. You know, lockdown and things like that had a big effect. You know, one of my clients was a teacher of infant school, and that the result of lockdown was terrible, and the state many of the kids were in, because the parents couldn't cope with them, having them at home all the time. I am in no way advocating hitting children, but also recognising that was a simple sanction that people could apply
back in the day,
because it did a lot of harm. I was beaten, not much as a young child, but as a teenager, and it did not do me any good. It was not good at all.
So would you say a friend to resilience would be discipline? Having disciplines in your life?
Well, I mean, in a way, resilience is self-discipline.
or structure.
But it gets really complicated. So a client of mine, a successful director of a company, but a company which had quite a toxic environment, a toxic male environment, which their view was, well, if you're on the board of the company, you should be able to take it no matter what, and quite misogynistic as well. And not really a place that women could enjoy. And that felt like bullying. That's getting really stressful. But we worked on but how you react to it belongs to you, they can't make you feel a particular way.
Yeah.
And this is a key thing about resilience. You made me feel bad. No, you didn't. I felt bad as a result of what you did. But maybe if I tell myself a different story, I can feel different. The trouble is with this, it sounds like it's victim blaming, which is actually not what I want to say. Oh, if you're being bullied and you can't cope, it's your fault. No, it isn't. But it's one of those things, it's quite contradictory. That, say, the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius said, nothing that happens to a man in life that nature doesn't give him the strength to bear. The thing is, that's true if you believe it, but it's also not true if you don't. So how do you start? This is the whole building a resilience. Is that view that I can build the strength to bear it. In Kipling's words, and I often quote from, if you can force your heart and nerve and sinew to serve their term long after they are gone, and there is nothing left within you except the will which says hold on, that's an example of extreme resilience. But it's that belief that you can hold on, not rather than other people can beat you down.
That would have been the perfect sign-off, by the way, if you wanted to just rattle that off at the end. I mean, it was beautiful, but too early. Well, I think
anticlimax.
The resilience.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, everyone's I'm feeling bullied now.
You should do.
I'm getting triggered. I'm getting triggered here.
You need thicker skin, my friend.
I wish you had resilience about you.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Fuck you all.
With bells on.
Out.
I don't know if the resilience is just generationally is so different because of, unfortunately, there's almost a justification of bad behaviour, because instead of being resilient and working through things, because people have now got a platform to go, well, I'm offended and I'm going to get mad. It's like, well, look, sometimes the bad shit, I know people will say, instead of it being a loss, it's a learn. It's really shitty saying. But it's really true as well. Because, hold on, like, the job you didn't get, the girlfriend you didn't get, the boyfriend you didn't get, or whatever's happened, like, even when you get in and you wanted something for tea and you got something else that you didn't particularly want, it's just learning how to manage everything. And unfortunately, it feels like all the nuts and bolts have come apart, and it's just like, it just straight to rage. And the problem is, it's a really difficult thing to just talk everyone off a ledge, and every single conversation you engage in, being more careful that you're not going to offend someone by saying something. Like, the amount of times I'll hear, I don't know, just a little clip on Instagram or something, and someone will use a word and they'll go, oh, like, this is a good example. A friend of mine went away with an Indian girl, good friends, and he's a gay lad, and he's really flamboyant, lovely guy, and he stood there and he did this pose for her to take a picture of him. And she went, that's racist. And he went, and literally like shocked beyond belief, because he hadn't said anything and like wasn't, and had done this, and she went, that is the way that our God holds her left hand or something. And I was like, I don't think I could cope in that environment. I don't think, because
I couldn't cope in that mentality.
No, because I'm always on a back foot, because I mean, if that's racist.
But imagine being that person, having to live in that mindset every day. This is
it, because like, give me the shovel, I'll just dig the fucking hole. Like, what are you doing? And I don't want to say that she's wrong, and I don't want to say that he's an arsehole, but it was.
Yeah, it's that, again, a modern trait, isn't there? People looking to take offence.
Yeah.
which again is not resilient.
No. No.
And again, that's not an excuse for allowing people to behave offensively. But again, that no one can offend me. I may take offence at something that happens
By choice.
Yeah. And just as I don't offend anyone else, I try not to behave offensively, but it doesn't mean that someone won't find offence at it. I tell all my clients that in our sessions that I'm the only one that can make a mistake, which is kind of an example of resilience. No matter what feelings they may evoke in me, they belong to me, and it's my duty to be professional and accept them absolutely unconditionally. So whatever happens, if I feel they've let me down, maybe a session's been missed and they've not given me any warning of it, okay, there may be a reason for that. Whatever feelings I have are for me to deal with and to be completely accepting of them.
So they have an infinite restart. They
they cannot ever get it wrong. They can call me what they like, they can do what they like, because I'm the only one that can make a mistake.
I think it's the fact that you tell them that rather than it being assumed is probably the most empowering feeling for them. Because I know personally, I don't get anxiety for ringing someone or cancelling or doing whatever, but I know people in my family really do. And I think sometimes things do need to be cancelled, or they do need to change a time or a date or whatever it is. And for them to know that, no worries, okay, it's all good. At least that must be empowering, because they are the ones clearly with whatever issue, and to admit that in the first place is a big hurdle. But then to come to you and know that it's a safe space, everything's good.
They might say, "Oh, can I? Do you mind if I ask if we change the?" So I said, "I absolutely don't mind.
Yeah,
you can ask me anything. It's my choice how I respond to it."
Yeah, it's just working together, isn't it?
Yeah,
I like the idea of removing yourself from being the victim and just taking that power in whatever way you can, because it's not accepting I'm just going to get bullied now, but going like we said in the podcast, this is where I'm at. And this is what my part to play. Nobody else can do anything for me now. This is my part to play, and what I'm going to do about the situation.
Yeah, and let's broaden that to life.
Yeah.
Everything in life boils down to, this is where I am. What am I going to do with it?
Yeah, precisely. And look, wishing and praying and hoping doesn't necessarily manifest stuff, whereas you can physically do and try. And I've realised recently that sleep is probably the biggest thing for me.
Is there not? There's some science on sleep on it, isn't there?
Well, I want to do a whole session on it at some point.
Yeah.
It's very important.
When people
it's the single biggest factor in a sense of well-being, actually, that we can have some influence over.
Check me out. Look at that, see?
I've really noticed when I've had a bit of a situation occur and they say, "Oh, sleep on it," and I'm in my head, I'm going, "No, I want it now," but I do eventually go to sleep on it. I wake up with the answer, or I wake up with something. It's just resolved somehow,
or just physical sleep.
Yeah.
Stop. Just stop.
Yeah.
Have a minute. Like, I was going to bed every night, probably 3 in the morning, 2 in the morning, and then I was nodding off and I was exhausted, and I wasn't a complete set. And I've realised when my body's saying, "I think I want to go to sleep," it's like, go on then, let it go to sleep, and it's not fighting that. And I think it's being a lot more clear-headed and understanding and accepting within every facet of my family, because that's the most important thing. Not necessarily work. Obviously work comes, and sometimes you can be exhausted with it and you could have slept for a month, but other times you're on it. Whereas I mean, with family and niggly certain little shitty bits that you would, my fuse before was so short.
I felt that energy then, the shitty bits.
Yeah. Well, this is it, man. I don't like having a short fuse, and I don't like flipping out, because I can just look at it straight away as soon as I think.
So why are you so obnoxious on a Friday night when we're driving?
Because you are.
Okay.
Because you started it.
But you see, you're blaming me there.
Yeah,
you said
it's always your fault. You accept that it's always... I'm not a paying client, but you have to take responsibility that it's your fault. Surely.
Yeah, okay, I do enjoy winding you up.
Yeah, you do. You do it like a fucking... like a wind-up... Honestly, mate. If you wouldn't recognise... As soon as the driving helmet goes on and he's got his joypad in his hand...
It's called Wreckfest, not Friendfest. Not drive like a Sunday school teacher.
I know exactly what you were going to say then, and it was a very bad swear word. It got edited.
You're a clockmaker.
Yes, mate.
That's what you are.
So
I said clock.
Okay.
yeah, it's but that's it, and I think the best thing for me is knowing that I've got friends with those boundaries, because I don't think we've ever really offended each other apart from our own insecurities with stupid shit. But by being able to talk about it whenever it has arisen, has built the boundary to be so much more.
Well, it's based on that belief, and I fully engage in this belief with both of you. You're my friends. And that's it. And there's no change in that.
Yeah,
That's nice.
and it's important. But
Yeah.
that's important. I know
You can't do anything to lose my love.
no, it might disappoint me sometimes.
26
fucking
minutes
time,
late
yeah.
today, was it? 20, I'm cutting it down.
Yeah, but just a final thing, another part about resilience which is important, it's not keeping on regardless. Sometimes resilience is about recognising something's not working and then making a change. Often we can be doing something and we run up against something called the sunk cost fallacy. I've put so much into this now, I can't give up on it. Well, what you've put into it has gone. It's a sunk cost. You're never retrieving it. So sometimes it's just about, well, that's gone. I'm going to go in a different direction now.
Yeah, we've had them chats.
Yeah.
I've been there.
It might be
Yeah.
relevant for you at the moment.
It alleviates that concern then, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You genuinely, if you think of it in that way, as well, the worst is we're just going to have to cut losses. That's where we're at. And that does take the pressure off.
Yeah. In my past, I've had, abject business failure, loss of business, income, home, everything. But I still had everything that I needed, which was my wife and my dog.
Yeah,
Yeah.
mate.
No, my dad, when I was in my real breakdown period, I was completely just on the drugs, on the substances, screaming at the top of rooftops.
Screaming at the rooftops or
At
on
the
the
top
rooftops?
of rooftops, rooftop on the top ofs.
Even better. I love it.
Still on it, I think.
Yeah. I was just having this really bad day, and he had to take me for a drive because I couldn't sleep at home, and driving would get me to sleep. So he just took me for a drive, and he said something like, "Oh mate, they can't take the clothes off your back," and just something as simple as that meta-programmed a part of me, and I thought, okay, I've got this. This is where I'm at. I've got the clothes on my back. Nobody's getting that off me. And then it's keep adding to that. But it was such a simple thing, and I've stuck to it till then. I always say, "Oh, can't take the clothes off your back, mate."
Yeah.
It genuinely it centers me. It
You are,
makes me think.
you are your own foundation.
Yeah, and that's the same with not taking me dog. They're not taking me kids. We've
Yeah.
got that. That's our strength. That's our stability.
Yeah. So,
Everything else is just an
yeah.
addition.
So I want to wrap things up now. So resilience is a key skill. It's something I think we're learning all through our lives. But the most important lesson is that no matter what happens, we get through it until that day when we don't, because we're always going to lose the last battle. So let's enjoy the ones before that. Thank you. Bye-bye.